Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. Just before I give it over to Yinka, I just want to give a brief overview of MentorColor. You already know MentorColor, but just to kind of reiterate what we do and why we're doing it. Really, MentorColor, what it's about is that we want to bridge the gap that we've identified when it comes to representation in tech. So people of color specifically are underrepresented, and we want to ensure that you can get access to networks and a wealth of experience that you would otherwise not be able to access. So what we've done, with MentorColor is that we've put together mentors that are really experienced in their field and in their craft. And we give you access to these mentors. Our mentors are from several countries across the world. Some of the companies you know about, and other companies that are doing other fantastic things. And our mentors have experience from a range of industries. So if you're interested in specific industries, you can also find mentors on MentorColor to guide you as you progress through your career. What you can expect is you'll be able to get one-to-one mentorship on the MentorColor platform. You can also get group sessions like this, and everything is done online. So via video calls, so which makes it accessible. You can work on different skills if you're looking for career advice or working on some interview techniques or even some soft skills. You can get support from mentors. And we have mentors from all across the stack, all the way from front end to like data, ML, and I mean, even like product and leadership. And yeah, like group sessions. So we're having this session with Yinka. There's a lot of other sessions that we have every week. So I encourage you also to join those and learn from our mentors. So now I'm gonna give it over to Yinka to take the stage. At the end of the session, you will also receive an email to give feedback. So help us get feedback on how we can continue to improve and what you kind of gained out of these sessions. We're gonna have a space for you to ask questions. And so just if you already have any burning questions, you will get the space to ask those. So yeah, Yinka, I'll give it up to you and I'll stop sharing my screen.
All right, thank you for the intro. Hi everyone, my name is Yinka Coker. I am a technical recruiter at Microsoft. I've been recruiting for about 7 years now. I've been at Microsoft for the past year and a half. Previously before that, I was at a high growth startup called Angella. And then previously before that, I was basically growing my recruitment career for about 5 years in the Middle East, working, across agency and in-house recruitment roles. So getting into the topic for today, which is landing your next job at Microsoft. I would say landing your next role anywhere, not just at Microsoft, starts with one, deciding what roles you want to apply for. So first things first, what are you skilled at? Are you a software engineer? Are you a technical designer? Are you a program manager? Are you an engineering manager? Are you there's so many roles within, tech that you could apply for. And of course, Microsoft recruits for, a wide variety of roles. So first things first, you need to identify what kind of roles you're interested in. So that's the first step. So once you know what fields you're interested in, the next step really is to go on the Microsoft careers page. I'll drop the link later. And then, start exploring roles according to, the fields you're interested in, the locations you're interested in, whether you're looking for remote on-site positions. You start filtering down on your search on the Microsoft careers page, and then you start seeing the different options in terms of the roles open. Once you identify the roles that you're interested in, the next thing, of course, to do is to apply. Now, this is the critical point. Before you even apply, you need to get ready to apply. And getting ready, to me, involves, making sure your CV and your LinkedIn are, up to par. Starting off with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very, very useful platform. Every recruiter I know is on there. So definitely it's a good place for you to network, to market your skills and, maintain an online presence. Now, the reason why LinkedIn is important is for most companies, especially big tech companies, your Microsoft, the Facebooks, the AWSs of this world, they all have what we call the applicant tracking systems, ATSs, that basically handles inbound applications. So basically on your side, when you go on the Microsoft careers page and you look for a role and you apply, on our side, it comes into this tool where I'm able to see your application and your profile. Now, these days, you'd notice if you've applied for a job recently that most companies ask for a link to your social media, most especially your LinkedIn page. And the reason why they do that is to link your CV to your LinkedIn page. And then when the recruiters are reviewing your profile, they can always pop onto your LinkedIn and just look at, the kind of experience you've had, the education, the skill set that you have, and then look at the details on your CV as well. See if you have maybe any recommendations from people in your network, for example, what kinds of projects have you listed there? What kind of skills have you listed there as well? So every recruiter definitely, cross-references your LinkedIn and your CV. So definitely that's what I said. Before you even apply, you need to make sure your CV and your LinkedIn are up to par. Now, talking more about LinkedIn, definitely make sure, you have a picture. I know some people might be shy or, you might not necessarily be wanting to put yourself out there. But, if you're comfortable doing that, definitely make sure you have a picture or your LinkedIn profile. And then the next thing you want to do is, make sure you have all your details on there. LinkedIn is pretty simple. If you don't have a profile there, go on, log on, try to create an account. And it's such a simple user interface. Just upload a picture, put in your details around, the jobs you've had, what responsibilities you did there, and what your achievements were, if any, and then put details around your education and your skill set, and boom, you have a profile. So it doesn't take any extra additional resources to create an account on LinkedIn. It's pretty simple. So if you don't have a LinkedIn page, then make sure to create one. So besides LinkedIn, making sure your LinkedIn page is updated, your CV obviously is a very critical point, part of this process. So your CV, of course, we don't expect you to put a photo of your CV, so please don't put a photo of your CV. You don't need to put your date of birth on your CV, so that's not needed. What anybody really evaluating your CV is looking for is your skills and your experience and your education, if that's relevant to the role. So make sure your CV is you don't need to create any fancy templates or designs in it. Just a simple, clean format that is readable. Is all you need on your CV. Now with the CV, of course, your name, maybe you might want to put your location, not your address, and then a link to your LinkedIn profile as well can be nice on the top of your LinkedIn page. And then of course, make sure to list details around, your education. If you maybe have an education, if you don't, definitely make sure to list your skills and your experience. Provide as much detail around, your interests, the projects you've worked on, and, every other relevant information you think would assist, your application to get through that initial screening stage. Now, once you make sure, you have all the relevant information on your CV and your LinkedIn, this is now the point where, you jump on the careers page, find the right opportunities that you're interested in, and then you apply. Of course, most times these days, nobody really cares about a cover letter. Most companies even write about them on LinkedIn saying, nobody really, requests for them as a demand. But if you want to write a cover letter, that's fine. If you don't, that won't, put a dent on your application in any way. So there's no demand for it. The main thing really that will be happening after you apply is that somebody like myself, a recruiter, will be looking at the applications that come in and trying to, evaluate all the profiles and trying to select, the best suited candidates for that role and sending them across to the hiring manager. So this is where networking with recruiters as well becomes a bit influential. I wouldn't say critical to the process. Now, a lot of time, it's good to reach out to recruiters, get in touch with them. A lot of the time people write me, oh, I'm interested in this role. And, if I do have the bandwidth at that point in time, I'm able to, pick that request up, reach out to my colleagues and say, hey, who's handling this role? I have someone that's reached out. What's the status? And then, we can maybe put in a word there. But of course, the main thing really is just to apply and get your CV into the system. Now, once the application comes in, of course, I'll be reviewing, my colleagues will be reviewing, and trying to, sift through these profiles. Now, how do you make your profile stand out to a recruiter? Because that's always the first step. Now, when you're crafting your CV, the key thing really is to make sure, it has all the right details that are related in terms of your experience and your skill set. And then the second thing you want to capture and contrast is what are the skills and requirements of the role versus the skills and abilities that you have right now. So once you have a look at both, you can see that, okay, this role is probably too senior for me, or no, this is perfect. I have all the skills and experience and that they require, and I'm happy to apply. Or you can think, oh, maybe I'm not there just yet, and I should look for a more junior role. So a good thing is to basically take that step to evaluate and see, what the demands of the role are versus, where you are at in terms of your skill set today. So if you're applying for a role that's maybe, if you're currently a software engineer with 6 months of experience and you're applying for a role for like a, SD2 or like a principal software engineer role, then of course you should expect that your application will get rejected because, you've got recruiters reviewing these applications and they know based on your, your skill set and your experience that, you're not there right now, to meet the requirements for this role. So of course you'll be getting a rejection email. But in the case where, you've done a good match between what the demands of the role are and, what you're able to present today as your skill set on the table, then the recruiter will be able to see, that you have the skills and experience related to that role, and then they'll be happy to pass your CV on to the hiring manager. Now, once the CV gets to the hiring manager review stage, what usually happens here is that the hiring manager, or whoever is the stakeholder from the hiring team that's looking at the profiles, they'll be looking to do an evaluation of the profiles as well that I've sent through, and they'll be trying to see what the names or the profiles that they would like to invite for an interview. So of course, this is the same thing as well as the recruiter CV screen, where the hiring manager is looking at your skill sets versus what they need for that role, and they're trying to see if there's any match there. If they're looking for somebody with about 5 years of experience, are you somebody with 6 years of experience? Are you someone with 2 years of experience? So of course that would determine whether you're getting screened in or not. So a lot of the time, maybe we can hear people getting frustrated saying, oh, I'm applying, I'm not hearing back, or I'm applying to jobs and I'm getting rejected. I think it's also good to take a pause and reflect on what you've been doing and trying to see whether you're actually applying to the right roles in the first place. So definitely, if you're doing something, again and again, and you get to the same results, definitely, no matter what you're doing, it always takes, it's also a good idea to take a pause and reevaluate, what you've been doing and trying to see where you're not getting the results you want, and then seeing what you can do to, get changes and get the positive results they're looking for. So of course, when the hiring manager reviews the profiles and selects your CV for an evaluation, what will happen now? I'm giving this example for a software engineer role. So of course, for a role that's like a technical designer, the interview process will be different. But at Microsoft, for a software engineer position, for example, after we've gone through the stage of the CV reviews, what happens next is the initial technical evaluation. So the technical evaluation can be two ways. We have a remote test that usually happens via Codility, which is usually like a test I'll take about maybe 120 minutes, 90 minutes, just over an hour. And depending on the role, the test will basically be assessing for a few things, your algorithm skills, your data structures. So basically it's a technical test. A lot of the time, if you're preparing for a technical test like that, you go on Lead Code, you go on HackerRank, you might go on work on some projects and on GitHub, but definitely make sure, you're practicing your coding skills and making sure you're ready to actually take that test. Of course, before your test, we'll send you some tips and, prep documents and resources to help you, and guide you in the right, to prepare the right approach and make sure you have access to the right resources ahead of the interviews. But of course, when the interview day comes, it's going to be you versus the computer, or you with the interviewer on a phone call. So yes, the technical screen with Codility is one section. Depending on the role, it could be maybe a 45-minute one-on-one call with an interviewer. And principally, it would be the same thing. The interviewer is trying to assess, your technical skills, see if there's, those soft skills are there. I'm going to talk a bit about that later. And then they're trying to see if the cultural fit is there as well. So when you're having this one-on-one calls, of course, the interviewer will maybe start with an icebreaker, try to get to know you. And then, later on in the conversation, they'll have a more of a technical discussion where they'll be trying to gauge, the level of your experience and skill sets, the depth of technical abilities that you have in terms of, being able to show, where on the table of talent you fall into, if you're a senior talent, if you're mid-level, if you're entry-level, junior, graduates. So what they're basically trying to do in that session is to filter out and understand, where your technical skills are at, and then see, oh, this is more of a senior candidate, or this is more of a mid-level candidate belonging to the middle band, or this is more like somebody that, technically, based on the evaluation, they're more entry-level and early in career. So after this stage of the process is done, what would then happen is that there's an evaluation internally where we're reviewing, the feedback from your interview, or we're reviewing the feedback, the results from your codility test that you did as a take-home assignment. And then we're seeing, there'll be a review with the recruitment team, that'll be maybe myself, and then somebody from the hiring team. And then what they'll do is they'll do like the technical evaluations. Of course, with Codility, they have the ability to replay your code, so they can watch, how you wrote every line of code, see how you tested it, how you do the edge cases and all of that. And then, they'll decide if, based on the results of the interviews or the evaluations, they'll decide if, you've performed well enough to proceed to what we call the full loops, or the final round of the interviews. Now, at Microsoft, for full loop interviews, we usually have 4 of them. But depending on the role, you might end up having 5, or we've seen cases where people did 5. But in general, most of the interviews are 4. Now, with the 4 interviews, they're all designed to basically have different focus areas. So one of them, it's not usually a technical interview. We like to call it a cultural interview, where basically they're trying to understand, why you have the passions that you do, why you decided to be a software engineer, what drives you, what makes you wake up in the morning and want to get to work. So these are the kind of motivations and traits that I'll be trying to assess in that cultural session. But the other 3 interviews, they are fully going to focus on technical, and then they will, of course, have some soft skill competencies. Now, I'm just trying to pull up a little note, just give you a bit of a deeper dive on, what this interviews look like. So let's say for the 4 loop interviews, there's interview A, B, C, and D. Interview D, I've already talked about that as the cultural interview, where there's usually limited technical evaluations done in this session, because the main focus of this session is to basically see if you're meeting Microsoft's culture and values in terms of something like growth mindset. And growth mindset, for example, is all about your ability to, reflect on challenges and past failures and what you've learned from that, and, how you use those learnings to influence how you deal with similar scenarios in the future. So they're looking at your learning agility, your ability to think outside of the box, your ability to deal with failure, how you demonstrate courage as a way to build empathy and drive towards allyship, working with teams. So there are a lot of like soft skills being analyzed in this session. So there's less of a focus on technical skills. Now, with the other 3 sessions, let's say session A, this session will focus on coding, really, algorithms and data structures. And then for the second half of the session, you'll probably focus on competencies like collaboration, ability to unblock others, team play. So a mix of cultural and technical. Now, the second interview, which I'll call maybe interview B, it's more of a session that will focus on distributed systems, coding fundamentals, quality awareness, testing. And then on the soft skill competencies, they might ask you questions around, discussing technical challenges, your ability to follow through, your ability to do end-to-end innovation, which is basically having a problem, thinking through that problem, and then thinking of the potential pitfalls while working through that problem and finding a solution. So you can see the competencies are very different. If you now look at interview C, this is another interview that will focus on software design and architecture. And then on the soft skill side, they will probably be looking at stuff like planning, organizing and executing, managing deadlines, working with stakeholders, managing expectations. So you can see there are totally different focus areas for each session. So when you're thinking of, full up interviews at a company like Microsoft, yes, there's a technical emphasis, but as well, you can see the many points I've mentioned. There's also a big emphasis on your soft skills. So we're not just looking for people that are amazing, software engineers or amazing at coding. We're looking for amazing humans, amazing colleagues. And, when you're working with people, this is where, your soft skills more than your coding skills begin to matter. Are you able to collaborate? Are you able to push back as needed? Are you able to work with others? Are you able to communicate effectively, both verbal and written communication? Are you a good planner? Are you good at organizing and executing? Are you able to anticipate customer needs? Are you able to, understand the customer demands, and, and your customers can be internal and external as well. So basically there are different competencies that are being woven into the technical bits of the interview. So even though you might think, oh, I've got a technical interview at Microsoft, we're going to be coding all day. There's also a big emphasis on the, non-coding skills and non-technical skills. So those are areas that, you know, you have to keep in mind while you're preparing for these interviews. Of course, if you get shortlisted for a follow-up interview at Microsoft, somebody like myself or any of my colleagues will be getting in touch with you to run you through a prep session where we're going to share resources with you, talk through some of these tips I'm sharing today around, you know, what to expect in each of the sessions, what the focus areas are, and then, of course, we'll guide you to resources. We have internal interview guide documents that we always send across. And then, of course, you can always go do your own research, go on YouTube, research around behavioral interviews using the STAR framework. If you've never heard of that before, it's called situation, task, action, results. It's actually an improved version of it now, but I don't want to, you know, let it cut out of the bag. Don't do your research, learn more about that. If you're doing, you know, interviews at any big tech company, you know, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, you know, it's pretty much the same thing you're going to expect or experience in terms of, you know, how they focus not just on technical questions, but on behavioral and cultural questions as well. So definitely go do your research. All the competencies I've listed, like collaboration, communication, you know, anticipating stakeholder customer needs, working with stakeholders. Definitely, you know, if you're preparing for an interview like that, you know, I'll probably be, you know, guiding you through that, giving examples and kind of tips of, you know, what you can think through around, you know, your past and current experiences, especially when you're, you know, you've had some level of experience. If you've not had, if you're early in career, for example, maybe you're applying to a graduate role or entry level role, or we might think, oh, you know, I've never worked in a company. I've never had any opportunity to collaborate or work with stakeholders. But if you definitely have a deeper think, looking at, you know, projects you've worked at university or in college, or, you know, even if you never went to school, if you've been building stuff, working with other people, there are soft skills that you're going to develop, you know, being in those scenarios. And those are the kind of examples we'll be expected to hear from you, talking about, you know, past experiences. They might ask you, you know, a competency-based question around collaboration, like, oh, tell me about a time where you had to work with people outside of a team to, you know, build a solution or work on a project. How did that go for you? So definitely you should be able to think about one or two scenarios where you've had to collaborate with people outside of a team, maybe in, you know, the design department, or in the accounts department, or maybe the operations department, or, you know, maybe it was an external stakeholder that you were collaborating with. But definitely, before your interview, we'll be sharing all these tips with you and giving you tips on ideas on how to find the right, you know, examples from your past experience or current experience, to give, you know, basically an update on how you've been able to live these competencies your own way. Because what we look for when we thinking about the cultural or the culture of Microsoft, are all these key soft skills, and then we try to assess for them during the interview. Like, okay, do you enjoy working with people, or are you more of an IC? How do you collaborate with people? How do you unblock situations? How do you unblock situations of conflict with colleagues at work? So all these examples, all these questions, all they're really trying to do is see scenario-based answers of how you've been able to, you know, work in these different scenarios, navigating difficult customers, or, you know, planning, organizing, and executing a project. They're really trying to see how you work with others, how you collaborate, how you communicate, and how you, you know, exist in a multicultural, diverse environment like ours. So that's exactly what the interviews assess for, on the technical and non-technical side. And then, of course, after the interviews, it might take a week or two, because there was a lot of conversations internally, doing reviews, analyzing your code, and, you know, the answers you gave and the feedback from, you know, all the stakeholders, all the interviewers. And then, you know, once a decision is made, you know, your recruiter will be reaching out to you to share the news, whether it's positive or negative. We'll definitely reach out to you to share the feedback. Of course, if it's negative, then, you know, there are always learning points. We'll schedule a session where, you know, we'll walk through the feedback with you, we'll talk you through, you know, what you did well, what went not so well, how you could improve, you know, what the feedback was from the interviewers. And then, of course, you know, if you have a growth mindset, those will be tips that you want to take on board and, you know, go work on your craft and reapply. Not everybody gets into Microsoft on their first application. I've seen cases where people apply 2, 3, 4 times, did interviews multiple times over a period of time before they finally got in. But definitely, you know, if you get a yes today, if you get a no today, doesn't mean you can get a yes tomorrow. So another thing really is that ability to, you know, face challenges and find your way around them to overcome them. So if you think, oh, you know, I did a Microsoft interview and it didn't go well, and, you know, I never want to apply again, that's probably not the kind of, you know, culture we're looking for. We're looking for people that when they get, you know, stumped by a problem, you know, they have that problem solving ability to, you know, find a way to, you know, upskill themselves, take the feedback on board, upskill themselves, and then come back. And definitely our interviewers always appreciate that. So, if you do get a no, don't take it as the end of the world. Definitely it's just a hint for you to just work on your craft and, give it another shot next time. If you do get a yes from your interviews, of course, we'll be reaching out to share the feedback with you, and then we'll make you an offer, which is always very exciting. I love making offers. And then if you do accept the offer, then we have what we call the standard background checks, where they're just verifying your education and work experience. And then once that is done, you get your employment contract, you sign it, and then boom, you become my colleague and start your career at Microsoft. So that's typically what the interview process looks like, from the pre-prep stage, where first that, okay, I want to look for a new job, and then you start doing your search, going on the careers page, looking at the opportunities available. And then 2, you're looking at yourself and you're looking at the role. Am I a fit to have the skills they're looking for? If the role has specific skill set that they're looking for, do you have that? If you don't, then for that particular position, your application will probably not be successful, because they've basically listed out the specific skills that they need. But in general, for like a software engineer position, for example, they're stack agnostic. We don't care if you do Java or C# or Golang or JavaScript or C++. We're stack agnostic. Come as you are, do what you love. That's what we say. So, definitely, you need to apply. And then once the application goes through, we take you through the steps. You get the screens done, you do the interviews, and then, get to the offer stage. And that's what the process really looks like. Next, I want to take a bit around, best practices in terms of preparing. Definitely, if you have friends or colleagues or, a mentor, whoever you can reach out to, definitely practice with somebody. It can be a bit nerve-wracking, I guess, practicing on your own and, practicing your answers. So if you know anyone that, you're comfortable enough to practice with, it's not like that's a guarantee of being successful, but definitely it's good to practice as much as you can. Practice your coding skills, practice your answers on the behavioral questions. Definitely do your research about the company. A lot of time, you get questions like, oh, why do you want to work at Microsoft? And some people don't actually have a reason, or when they do, it's actually a bit generic. So definitely, find what your motivations are, understand what your goals are, and how working at Microsoft will help you achieve them. So, definitely have a good think about what your motivations are. And that key tip is to have questions for your interviewers. This is the best practice, irrespective of what you're interviewing. And there'll always be a point in most interviews where the interviewer will ask you, oh, do you have any questions? And please make sure to have a question. So, do your research, find things you're curious about the team, about the organization, about the culture. There's a lot of questions you could ask. You could go and look up the interviewer's LinkedIn profile, see how they've grown. Ask them interesting questions around how and why they've grown. What stood out for you in their background that you're curious about. You can ask them about a day in the life, what they do in the day-to-day job. What does the day in the life look like on the role? You can ask them around, what challenges they face, what's the most exciting thing they've worked on or built recently. You can ask them questions around, the culture on the team, what's it like. You can ask around, getting growth on the role looks like, how your performance evaluations will be. There are a million questions you could ask, about the role, about the teams, about the interviewers themselves. So definitely, do your research, come up with some unique questions, make yourself memorable to the interviewer, make it an engaging conversation. The interviews are not designed to be a question and answer session where your interviewer is going to ask you a question and then you stay there and you answer, and then they stay there and then you answer back. So make it an engaging conversation. Don't make it an interview, make it a conversation. That's really the tip I want to share. Make sure, you give a good impression of your personality. A lot of the time when people are interviewing our big tech companies, you either want to put away the real you, or you want to put on a front to be real you're not. But the main thing is to really find a balance and just be yourself, and don't be afraid to, let your personality shine through. You just don't want to come in there and, just be a bit robotic and not be interactive. So definitely be engaging, make it a conversation. Another key tip that I usually hear from interviewers, taking too long answering one question. If you get stumped, don't be afraid to, say you're stumped. And instead of, spending 45, 30 minutes struggling with one question, it might be good to just, let them know that you're stuck. And then, of course, the interviewers will be able to share hints and tips to help you unblock, whatever problem you're facing at that point in time. what other tip do I want to share? I've been talking on and on for a bit. Post application, we get a lot of thank you emails that are not really necessary. The interviewer's job is to interview you anyway, so you don't need to think, oh, do I need to send a thank you email? Maybe if I don't send one, they're not going to make me an offer, or they won't like me. We don't really expect a thank you email. So, just do your thing, apply, give you a best shot at the interviews. And, your recruiter is definitely going to come back to you and share feedback and updates and, guide you through what the next steps will be. So don't feel the pressure. I know a lot of people would read all these LinkedIn articles and like, oh, yeah, send a thank you note to your recruiter and thank you note to the hiring manager at Microsoft. It's nice to get them, but really it has no impact on your application. The real thing that we're looking for is, what competencies you display during your interview. And then based on that, the interviewers will do a fair evaluation. And of course, we'll come back to you with the feedback, and fingers crossed it's positive. Always looking forward to welcoming more people in Microsoft. So definitely looking forward to getting everybody's application if you find any roles you're interested in. And yeah, do make sure to apply. Don't feel the pressure of the occasion, like my friend always says. So those are some of my best tips and tricks on how to get a job at Microsoft. I think I'm gonna take some time to perhaps do the questions now.
Yes, we have a few of those already coming in. So I think what we're going to try to do, we're going to take some from the chat and probably also open the floor at some point for those that want to just speak out for their questions. So I'll just start from the top. The first one, so someone says, so it's, I guess at Microsoft, who decides whether to up-level or down-level a candidate? Can you please provide tips to get to the correct level?
Good question. I mean, there's no decision to up-level or down-level a candidate. What usually happens, well, because I'm primarily, in the middle of this, I guess I can give my own insight. What usually happens, let's say I have 3 positions open. I have a software engineer 1 open, that's more entry level, 5960. Then I have a software engineer 2 role open, which is like 61, 62. And then I have the senior software engineer role, which is 63. What happens is usually for like a senior software engineer role, we get applications from people across the board. We have people that are even entry level applying for a senior software engineer role. And it makes me chuckle because I'm like, you're not a senior software engineer right now. Why are you applying for this role? Of course, that application will get this position. And then, if you're more mid-level, and then we'll think, okay, this person should probably be in this bucket. So probably, if your profile is that good, we'll probably hit you up and say, hey, we're going to move you into this bucket. And, are you interested in this role? And then if you say yes, that will probably take you to the interview process. But what I always recommend is apply to roles you're qualified for. If you apply to roles you're not qualified for, whether it's the ATS or the recruiter, somebody's going to reject the application. So definitely only apply to roles that, that you're qualified for. That will give you the best chance. In terms of leveling, what really happens is that, the technical evaluations are done. The leveling is done after all the interviews are completed, which is, the final round of interviews. And basically the interviewing panel, they all give their feedback about what their respective sessions was like and what their feedback was, whether it was a yes or a no. And then based on the collective feedback of the team, they, calibrate and agree on a level. So you rarely see a case where, somebody was evaluated by the team to be a software engineer, and then, the candidate saying, no, I think I'm a senior. The decisions are usually based on objective feedback, based on the technical and cultural and the, the behavioral bits of the interview. So, there's usually a bit of a smaller margin of error really with the levelings. Of course, we do get cases where people are unhappy with the levelings, but, like I say, the industry is so big. You could have 2 years of experience and be working at a startup and you'd be a principal. And then the same person will go to a company like a Microsoft that has 200,000 employees, and every company has the way they level themselves. So, the leveling bit is basically based off of the feedback from the interview and of your performance in the interview. So, it's very, very complex and difficult to argue against that because, it's based on objective feedback. If your code is at the level of a senior software engineer, it's not like we're rationing the titles and the positions. So if you're definitely a senior, you're definitely going to be ranked as a senior. It just depends on your performance in the interview. So yeah, that's it about leveling.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think we have another one here that says, if I applied to a job and I wasn't selected and the same job is reposted, should I reapply?
Yeah. Especially if you got rejected at the CV review stage, you're definitely encouraged to reapply. Even the rejection email will tell you that, you're always encouraged to reapply. If you do an interview and, you're not successful, I wouldn't recommend reapplying immediately. I would rather say, do a deep dive on the feedback, understand what you got to know, and then, upskill in those areas, and then maybe reapply in 3 to 6 months time. But if you apply and you're rejected at CV review stage, I would say as well, maybe pause and try to think about why your application was rejected. I mean, a lot of the time as well, it can be a case where it's just volume and, you didn't get in. But definitely, if you evaluate your own skills and experience versus the requirements of the role, and you think you're qualified, definitely reapply. There's nothing wrong with reapplying if you get rejected at the CV review stage. But if you do an interview and you get a no, I would definitely always encourage you to, make sure to get feedback from your recruiter or whoever is involved in the interview process. Feedback can be hard to deal with. It can be hard to take. We're all humans, and it can be a bit sensitive. But in my personal opinion, if anybody gives me feedback, I'll always jump on it and, take it on board and see how I can get better, because it's just natural for me. I'm always looking for ways to get better at what I do. So, I would say definitely, don't take feedback as, don't take it as an attack. Take it more as an opportunity to upskill yourself and give yourself a better chance of success. So, yeah.
Nice. I think we have one here with Steven. Steven wants to know how Microsoft eliminates bias in the recruitment process. So like racial bias and things like that. That's an interesting one.
How we eliminate bias? I mean, we're super inclusive. Our site lead actually is always looking at our recommend numbers, and it's like, okay, why are we not getting enough applicants and hires from the North? So, we're always looking for ways to hire and get more diversity. Gender diversity is big for us. Ethnic diversity is big for us. I know we're in Lagos, and, it's only natural that we get a lot of our candidates from the Southwest, for example, for roles in Nigeria, but we're always looking for ways and, innovative ways to reach out and tap into, different networks and communities in different parts of Nigeria and get them to, consider careers at Microsoft, because, we believe that, everybody can be successful at Microsoft, and you should definitely, give as many people the opportunity to get that chance to apply and, try to get through. So we're always looking for lots of ways to be diverse and inclusive in our recruitment. And, minus the fact that I enjoy diversity and inclusion on my own, there's a big driver from, our leadership and the business to make sure, we're getting as much diversity as possible. So in terms of inclusion and diversity, that's definitely top priority for us.
Yeah, that's a good one. I might be skipping some of those, but I'll just try to get to as many as we can. So there's one here from I'm around. Does having a referral matter if you're already working with a recruiter?
No. I mean, referrals are nice. Personally, I always find about the referrals much later in the process. So as usual, I do my reviews. And what happens, if I can even share this, is that when a referral is done on a profile at Microsoft, it gets attached to the profile. But, personally, it doesn't impact, my evaluation, because, I know what the demands of the role is. So if, for example, you are a carpenter, no previous experience as a software engineer, you have a referral from a Microsoft employee on your application, and you're applying for a senior software engineer position. Even if the referral is from the site lead or, the site manager or the country manager for Nigeria, I'm still going to, reject the application. I'll just, politely let him know that this person doesn't meet the skill set for this role. So, referrals are nice, but, they don't have the most key impact on your application. The main thing really is, do you have the right skills and experience for this role? The referrals are nice, but it wouldn't make a difference if you had one or not. If you have the right skills and you apply, if you have a referral or not, you get through.
Nice. Yeah, we have another one from Damilola who's asking. So this is specifically during the actual interview itself. Like when a recruiter asks, like for you to tell them about yourself, like what do you really say? Like, are there statements that you can make that could disqualify you for the role?
I mean, statements that could disqualify you will be, if you're being rude, or you make some racist comments or offensive comments. In general, I think a lot of people get tripped by that question. But at the same time, the main thing is to remember that, one, you're applying for a job, it's an interview. So if they're asking you, tell me about yourself, I don't think they're really interested in what you had for breakfast, or if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or if you like to travel or play basketball. Maybe if they're curious about your hobbies, maybe. But in general, if they ask you a question like, tell me about yourself, the main thing they're curious about is, a bit of an intro. Hi, I'm Yinka Koka. I'm a technical recruiter at Angella. I have 7 years of experience. I have a master's in international relations. Da, 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 da. That's what they're curious about. A brief intro about yourself, and then your skill set and experience and what you're bringing to the role. They're trying to, decide if they should take you further in the interview process. That's why, you're having this initial screens. So what you should really focus on is, what are you bringing to this role? What are your skills? What are what are the skills and competencies that you're bringing to the role? They're not really interested in, whether you had breakfast or not. So definitely always remember, when you get a question like that, oh, tell me about yourself. They're not only curious around, your hobbies. They're really curious around, oh, tell me in 5 minutes, what you're bringing to the table in terms of your skill and experience, and, why you think you're a fit for this role. That's really what tell me about yourself is.
Yeah, nice. Okay, there's another one. Let's see. So Odunayo says, how long does the interview process take from applying to getting an offer?
It depends. It depends. It depends a lot of things. It depends on your availability. It depends on our interviewer availability. But in general, I would say it takes a few weeks. It will take nothing more than 6 weeks, I would say, and that'll be long, maybe. But I would say I'd estimate 6 weeks. From maybe starting and applying to getting an offer. I would say maybe 6 weeks, but it could be longer or less, depending on the role and how big the project is, and how scheduling works out. Scheduling is always a big issue, especially when you're having interviewers in the US and candidates in Nigeria, time zone conflicts and all of that. But generally, it doesn't take too long, and your interviewer will always, not your interviewer, your recruiter will always guide you and give you feedback and next steps and what to expect in terms of timelines, getting feedback and next steps. So yeah.
That sounds good. And Kenneth he would like to know, like, like the granularity that you get with your skills on your CV. So do you go too detailed and be like, oh, I know how to use Microsoft Word, or like going too short but then missing some key skills like that? It's very tricky. Like, what kind of balance can you strike there?
I think, let's say for a sample CV, for example, if you list, let's say Yinka Koka, I'm a software engineer at Access Bank. So I've written my name at the top. I've put my LinkedIn link, and then I write Access Bank, VI Lagos, role, software engineer, responsibilities. I don't expect your responsibilities to be, a full page of an A4 paper. I expect responsibilities that'll be within maybe 5 to 7 bullet points, listing out what you do, what stacks you use for a software engineer, what programming languages, maybe list 1 or 2, 3 key projects that you worked on. Just provide enough detailed evidence of what you've done and your achievements in each role. Maybe you built a solution, or you introduced a tool that reduced your database by 10%. So list basically your responsibilities and a couple of the projects you've worked on, key projects, and maybe your achievements. That's it. And then do the same for all the roles you've done over your career. On that skills, just write all your programming languages that and that's the thing. A lot of people just go and copy paste key programming languages, and it always leaves a bad taste in the mouth of the interviewers, because in the interviews, though, if you list that you do C#, Java, and all the programming languages on the planet, if you happen to be interviewing with somebody that's an expert on all those languages, they'll pull you up on it. And there's nothing worse than listing something that's not a strong competence in your CV. So definitely don't just plaster keywords on your CV for the sake of it. If you're putting anything in your CV, make sure you can back it up. So list your key skills. If you do only 1 or 2 programming languages and that's what you're really good at, just list it there. You don't have to go and copy and paste all the programming languages that you can find and try to show that, you're an expert. Actually, that's usually a red flag, because they're like, there's no way one person can have a mastery of all of this. So definitely make sure you list your key skills that you're most proficient in. If you do MongoDB, any of the databases, list them there. All the frameworks and programming languages and stacks that you do, list them there, and that's it.
Yeah, that's super important, because if you say you're a Python expert and then you go to the interview and they realize you're struggling with that, that's probably not going to be reflect good on you.
Yeah, so it's not a good look.
Yeah, so we have another one here by Priscilla, and the question is like, can one negotiate the salary when you get the offer letter?
This is a tricky one. Well, I mean, as a candidate, if you do your research, I'm sure you probably have the answer to that, but I can't answer that one. But based on my non-answer, you probably have your answer. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
But of course, do your research. That's what I say.
Yeah, I think it's super important. Do your research. Try to know like what the salary ranges are, and sort of know what you can do with whatever offer you get.
Yeah. Fun. Another tip, if I can, well, this is public knowledge, so I can share that. Microsoft pays local salaries for all the locations. So for example, in Nigeria, we don't pay in USD. In Kenya, we don't pay dollars. So if you're Kenyan, you get paid in Kenyan shillings. If you're in Nigeria, you get paid in Naira. If you're in, the US, you get paid in US dollars. If you're in Canada, you get paid Canadian dollars. So we have localized salaries for the locations where we post roles. So, you can't be expected to get a paid US salary. If you go research software engineer salaries for New York, they're applying to a role in Nigeria and you're demanding Nigeria, New York salaries in Lagos, that's obviously not going to be practical. So definitely do your research based on the locations you're applying, and, you have a good look into what the salaries are.
Great. Let's see. I think we can take a couple more. I think there's one here, which this is probably an interesting one, which is around like availability. So Joshua is asking, like, is there a limit to how many times you can reschedule like a technical interview?
I mean, why would you want to be rescheduling it multiple times anyway? If you're not ready, you're not ready. Just, tell them you're not ready and wait till you're ready. It's not a good, look if you rescheduling interviews multiple times. It's not a good, reflection on your respect for the interviewer's time, because many of these people are, really senior people that, are taking time from their day jobs to come interview. So definitely if you're rescheduling twice already, then, it's not a good look. But I mean, people always have reasons. We're dealing with human beings. Maybe, you had COVID the first time and then you had COVID the second time. It's possible. So definitely, whatever your personal scenario is, connect to your recruiter, and definitely make sure to always just keep them in the loop. If you need to reschedule an interview, and of course they'll be happy to take up your request.
Sounds good. And I think we can take one or two more. Let's see. So this one is coming from Oyekola, and I guess I'm just going to summarize the question. So it's around like when to apply, sort of like, do you kind of wait till you see a job post, or can you just like cold email or something like a recruiter? And what about entry-level jobs? Like, how can you know that the specific job it's an entry-level one?
I mean, the jobs always say you would know mostly from the job titles, and then when you go into the job details, you can see whether it's an IC role, it's an individual contributor, it's a people manager role, and then but most times, especially for engineering roles, from the titles you can see it. If it's just software engineer, that means it's within the SD1 band. If it's software engineer 2, it's more senior, and then of course senior software engineer is always senior, and then you have principal after that. So definitely do your research. If you do your searches online, you definitely be able to read and understand how different companies do their levelings, and they can have a better understanding of what the job titles are when you look at them. But most times, once you look at the responsibilities and how many years of experience they're looking for, you can always tell if it's an entry level, mid level, or senior role. And then depending on what your skills are, make sure you apply to the ones you're most qualified for, because those are the roles that you have the best chance of being successful at.
Yeah, that's good. And this one is also very relevant. So Paul is asking, do you look for work experience when recruiting for internship roles at Microsoft?
No, so for interns, I mean, that's why you're an intern. I mean, if you have previous intern experience, that's nice. That's why if you go on LinkedIn and look at people that have, intern roles, you see someone intern at Google last summer, this year they're interning at Microsoft. So some people are career interns, they're doing their undergraduate programs, and every year, whether you need, they're interning with different companies. And that's good because it gives you a good way to, use your networks across all the different companies, and then land yourself a graduate role when you do graduate. So with internships, there's no requirement. I think right now the requirement for Nigeria is you should be in your third or final year to apply for internship roles. So definitely go on the careers page. All the details around internships are there. Go on the Microsoft website. Really everything is on there. Just do your research. Really, the information is out there. You just need to search for it and find it. So all the requirements are always listed there. So just look through the requirements. We don't look out for experience for interns. If you previously interned, that's great. The main requirement will be, write a good profile about yourself. Why are you interested in being an intern at Microsoft? List what you're bringing to the table, and then what you've done so far. So at this point, what they're looking for, maybe you're studying computer science at uni. They're looking at, okay, what projects have you worked on? So of course, you've not had any practical work experience. So now what they're looking for are, one, do you have solid communication skills? Are you able to collaborate with other people? And these are skills that you show through examples of projects that you've worked on. So for an intern, what are we expected to see in CV? Details of, maybe the coursework you've done so far, what you've learned, and then maybe some of the projects you've worked on. And those are the really key skills for an intern.
Yep, it's great. And I think there's one here from Babs, where the question is around, like, does years of experience carry more weight over skills, or vice versa?
In software engineering, I think they're intertwined. So, I mean, you can have 1 year of experience and have, the depth of skill set, technical skill set of a principal software engineer that's been at Microsoft for 15 years. It's just not possible. You might be a genius, but, there'll definitely be some skills that that person will have that you don't have. But at the same time, having lower years of experience does not mean having lower level of expertise. So, of course, that's the goal of the technical evaluations, to see how good you really are. And then based on how doing those interviews, will definitely, if you're interviewing for a junior role and you're performing at a more senior level, then definitely the interview team will say, this guy is definitely not entry level, it's more, a bit more senior than that. So they'll definitely put you in the right bucket at the technical sessions, depending on the competencies that you display. We've had people recommended for senior roles from the interviews, and we've had people recommended for junior roles. So it just depends on, how you do at the interviews. That's what dictates, where they're going to recommend you to fall in the, the career ladder or the seniority bucket.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes you kind of get in at at the initial stages, they kind of feel like, oh, maybe you're more on the junior side, and then maybe they actually realize you going through the interviews that you're on the mid-level, and then you just be up-leveled, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be the final one. Really sorry that we couldn't take all the questions. We'll try to get those asynchronously as much as possible. But the final one is very specific, and Opeyemi is really trying to get an answer to this one, where the question is, does Microsoft hire for software quality assurance engineers?
I mean, globally we do. If you're asking specifically about Nigeria, I don't know. So the best way to actually find out is to, set up a job alert on the careers page. That way you don't have to be going on the careers page every day. Set up a job alert. Go to Microsoft careers page. There's a way to create a job alert. Create a job alert and just sit back and chill in your house. Every time they post, a role they're interested in, you get an email that you can apply. So definitely you can create a job alert for intern roles. You can create a job alert for graduate roles, for full-time roles, industry roles, entry-level, mid-level, seniors, whatever roles you're interested in. If you go on the careers page right now, there's no roles that you're interested in for your location. Definitely, create a job alert, or definitely search for other locations. and you never know.
Yeah, that's a really cool tip actually. You
Yeah.
just like set up the alert and
Yeah.
you just wait. That's really that's smart. Yeah, so I think we're gonna end now because
Let me
we're
drop one
closing up
final
to.
tip.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Final tip: if you're reaching out to a recruiter, do your homework. Like a lot of the time, you get people that just message on LinkedIn and they just write hello. Please, 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 if you're reaching out to a recruiter, don't ever just write hello. Make sure you write a concise message, put exactly what you want in that message, that first message, and send it. If you send just hello, hi, sir, hi, boss, all this, it doesn't work. So, go straight to the point, tell them what you want. And number two, do your research. Don't come at me saying, oh, are you hiring for any software engineer roles? But like, you're the candidate. Have you gone on the careers page to actually check if there are roles you're interested in? You have a better chance if you've actually gone to the careers page and you check for a role that you're interested in, and then you come to me with the link and say, hi, Yinka, I found this role. I'm really interested in it. Like, how do I go about it? Or, whatever your ask is. But definitely, do your homework before you reach out to a recruiter. And that'll make your life easier and make the recruiter's life easier. I think that's my tip.
Yeah, that's a really good one because it kind of shows that you're putting in the work and everyone wants to see that, right?
Yep.
So yeah, so this has been really great, like lots of great tips that you've shared, Yinka. I'm sure everyone has benefited from this. I would say to the participants, like make sure to, as Yinka said, like sometimes when you're prepping for these interviews, you also need someone to kind of guide you through it. So go and book mentors on MentorColor. That's what we've built the platform for. So take advantage of it. We have mentors also that work at Microsoft and they can help you out. So feel free to do that. And make sure to also leave feedback. That will be great so that Yinka can know how much value you've gotten from this session. So yeah, I don't know, Yinka, any other thing you want to say, or is it all good for you?
Yeah, and I guess just be confident. We actually get people that are scared of the interviews. There was a lady that she just froze. There are people that freeze. So please be confident. The people that work at Microsoft, like my friend says, they don't have two heads. So don't feel like, oh, everybody at Microsoft is a genius. I don't belong there. Be very, very confident, and don't let the pressure of the brand name get to you. The interviewers are not there to fail you, they're there to collaborate with you. So just go there, do your thing, and give you your best shot. Yeah. So yeah,
that's a really good one actually, because that's a big pitfall that a lot of candidates fall into, especially when you're just starting out. What I usually say is just consider the interviewers as your colleagues. So imagine you were going to solve a problem collectively with your colleagues. That's exactly what it is. They're not there to see you fail. They actually want you to succeed. So don't just talk to them like you would with your colleague, and maybe that helps with calming the nerves. Amazing. Thanks everyone. And yeah, that will be the end of the session. Thanks for attending.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks for coming, Yinka.
Thank you, Yinka. And if you ever do this again, it's awesome. I'll tell more people about it so that we can get more eyes on this. This is great advice.
Yeah. Thanks, Chase. Yeah, we would love to do more of this. And yeah, feel free to check out the other group sessions. They're also going to contain lots of wisdom that you can benefit from.
Yeah, thank you. And I had a list of questions too, but I loved all the questions in the chat, so I didn't throw any in there.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, yeah, like feel free to shoot those. We'll see. I can send it over to Yinka, and depending on how he could do that, we could probably funnel that back to you. So
yeah, I feel like you could start a podcast on this. There's so many things that you could talk about.
Yeah, definitely, right. Yeah, and it's we'll be sharing the video, so everyone will be able to benefit from it.
All right. Well, bye everybody.